Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Powertime show with Matt and Scott. And on today's show,
shiny toys. It's a bit of a common theme in sort of where I work at the moment, that I like all the new things that are coming through and I have to get stuck in. And
there isn't a problem that we've found so far that can't be solved with the full stack. But there was a journey we all needed to go on. To me, that's when we'll hit, if you will, the holy grail.
Adam's basically a celebrity now.
The answer, no ads, just get an answer.
Yep.
And
agree.
Absolutely loving that app at the moment. Matt's just sitting there downloading it now.
It's power time. Get ready, let's go. Unlocking secrets leaders should know.
hey, everyone. Welcome to Powertime. I'm joined here with the Sweet Prince, aka Matt Noble. Just have a bit of a chat about CoPilot and AI today. And we've got a very special guest today joining us later in the show, Adam Gernon. But before we get into that, Matt, how has your week been? It's been a very exciting couple of weeks in AI. And how have you been going? Busy?
Yeah, I've been very busy. I'm not too sure about this nickname going a bit viral as well, but I have to thank our prior guest, John Kelly, for, I guess, sharing some of our little secrets. So yeah, I guess that's out in the wilderness now, some would say. And like I say, very interesting in AI. So much stuff is happening. I know you're always spamming me with all these sort of crazy AI things. I think I sent you one last night about how you could turn a photo into actual recording and presenting based off that. So there's so many cool things happening. Like I say, looking forward to unpacking it today on this episode. So yeah, let's start on that. So Scott, you sent me something about UDIO, and you also mentioned you might be creating our new UDIO jingle for our preamble for our podcast. Can you explain that to firstly me and then also our guests on the show?
Yeah, sure. I was really interested. I was listening to a different podcast actually, and they spoke about UDIO. UDIO.com is the URL, and we'll put that in the chat notes. But basically, it creates songs, right? So this is nothing new, and there's quite a few sites that do this. But what is new is it creates music in a way that it sounds very realistic, and you can actually do full musicals. So just from a prompt. So if you get really good with your prompt engineering, you can create some amazing intros. And I thought, oh, well, on this episode, I mean, we use AI for everything, right, Max? I use it for transcribing. When all the mastering for this podcast is done through AI. So there's a fair bit of AI going on already. And we use a different tool to be able to do the Powertime jingle. But UDIO looks really, really good and really promising. And it does blow my mind to think that you can do a simple jingle. And I created a song for my daughter, and maybe I'll play that as well a few seconds and tell me what you think. But I created a song for her about our dog Cookie, and I just thought it was phenomenal. So let me roll it now.
Play, play, play away. Play Ivy with Cookie in the sun today. They'll laugh and bark in parks so bright. No need for stories in their playful light. Ivy's giggle, Cookie's prance. Perfect pair in their joyful dance.
That's amazing. So how did you go about creating that? You just put in a couple of sentences or anything like that? And how easy would someone, have access to doing that? Like, what did you do to get started? And basically, how can I play around with it? Because again, I'm a bit of a curious soul. I like playing around with, shiny toys. It's a bit of a common theme in sort of where I work at the moment, that I like all the new things that are coming through and I have to get stuck in and very curious soul when it comes to that. But talk to me about how you actually started creating that.
So it was pretty easy, right? I just created a prompt. And then I went into ChatGPT actually and just said, create a song. And then I used that song to, after it created the music, to add to the chorus lines inside the tool. And then it just basically created the entire song for me. So just amazing result. I couldn't believe how good this is about AI, using AI to create stuff. And it reminds me, we set up a project within my team at Microsoft called Hearts and Minds. And Hearts and Minds was really there to be able to showcase to customers using different techniques with audio and video how our products really will fit the customer. So we'll go talk to a customer, we'll do discovery, then we'll grab that content and then we'll turn that into something that's really snackable for them. And we've had tremendous success. We've had CEOs of major 4 banks look at these things. And for us, because we're a smaller part of Microsoft Biz Apps, as you would expect, it gives us a lot of reach into really senior people at different accounts. And it's been a great pre-sales tool. But the thing is, if you think about when I started at Microsoft 7 years ago, the way we would do this, and we still had that concept, but the way we would do it is we'd go see a third-party company. They'd charge a lot of money to go and create this content for customers, and it'd be like a 3 to 6 month process, and it'd be really onerous. And in the end, you kind of lost what you're doing now, right? Now, because we went into it 3 or 4 years ago, the team was able to create some really good assets 3 or 4 years ago that we were able to turn out in probably about 2 months of just work and duration and all this kind of stuff without the use of any other third-party companies. Now we fast forward on 3 years later, and with all the tooling that we've got around AI and the video editing stuff that you can access, we can turn out these videos in about 3 or 4 days. And the quality is better than some of the videos coming out of Corp for us. Yeah. So, and we can just do that locally within my team. I mean, it does help that somebody in my team, Mandy, has a PhD in video editing. That does help, I will say. And one of my other person's a sound engineer as well. So we do have a bit of an advantage there. But having said that, the quality of this material is excellent. I wish I could share it, but it's really specific to customers, so we can't. But tools like UDIO are going to make a huge difference moving forward in marketing and things like that. So I was really impressed when I saw the quality of this. And another thing that really dropped this week was, looking at Microsoft Research and this VASA 1. I don't know if anyone's seen VASA 1, but the ability to be able to put emotions in a virtual avatar, it's been fantastic. I did. Yeah. So just if anyone wants to Google VASA 1, so pretty much Microsoft Research is working on realistic avatars that look like people and have real emotion and things like that. And it just really, there's about half a dozen sort of previews and it blew my mind as well. And, I really think it's not going to be long before it's going to be very difficult to distinguish between kind of a virtual avatar and a real person. As good and bad as that sounds. And, when we started talking about this, obvious use case, contact centers, all these kind of things. So for all of us who are leading teams out there, pretty soon you'll be leading an AI team and a group of people, or that people will be monitoring this AI team as well, which is a really interesting concept. And everyone goes onto this topic of jobs, right, when you talk about AI. And, Matt, you and I were at Steve Bartlett's session the other Friday, and, he spoke about if you look at every technology curve, it doesn't matter how you look at it, how you cut it, it always increases a huge amount of jobs. And the topic at the moment is if I've got an AI-assisted bot that kind of knows all this stuff, that opens the scope to the jobs that I could do that I couldn't do before. So, maybe highly skilled jobs that are around today, maybe you can do like a 2-year course and have an assistant that kind of does that heavy lifting for you. And a lot more people can be GPs, or a lot more people can be, pathologists and these kind of roles, right? So it's really going to change the way we work. And I think in a really positive way. It's easy to go to the negative. But let's face it, no one likes working in a contact center sometimes. It can be rough, and customers quite often don't like calling into them. So if we can modernize and make it a better experience for customers, I think it's a great thing. I think it is.
Yeah, I completely agree. And similar to yourself, we're looking at all these different technologies and all these different use cases. And again, some of the things we're doing is really groundbreaking and really exciting. And similar to your sentiment regarding Steve Bartlett, that was fantastic. We got a lot out of that together. But again, his big message was really about embracing AI, getting to learn to work with AI. And that really is sort of that next tech sort of forefront that we're going to be embarking on together. And again, the whole concept of this is not going to take your job, learn how to embrace it, learn how to use it, and then really maximize your efficiency on your day-to-day role within your sort of workplace. So on the AI topic, I know Wave 2 is coming out soon, Scott. I'm wondering if you've seen that and whether you can potentially talk at some level without giving away too much about what's going on with that.
Yeah, so for those listening to the show that don't know how, particularly the leaders that don't know how Microsoft release, I guess, feature updates, it's usually 2 waves across our financial year. We have wave 1, wave 2, the kind of April, May, September, October timeframe. I mean, with all the features that are coming out, you could say it's continuous, except for Christmas and end of financial, but that's how it works. And we publish the waves, and these waves started off, I remember a few years ago, like 2 or 3 pages, now they're 150. So the acceleration and innovation has really been tremendous. But that's the time where we really stand up and go, because a lot of things get up and they don't get funded. The rule is if they don't make it into the wave documents, then they're not going to go to market. So we keep an eye on those documents to really make sure what product is coming and is actually is going to land in product. And my team analyze it all the time. And of course, we get early access to it before anyone else. So there's a lot of stuff I can't comment on.
Come on.
This is what I will say. I can't believe how we've created AI-enabled products and put them to product so fast.
Yeah.
That this is a standout in this wave. And there was so many things that I just went, wow, that's amazing. That's going to change the life of this person, or that's going to make a big difference to this admin, or this person's going to be so much more effective, or that messaging is really fantastic around that, right? So I think we'll get into this as soon as I'm allowed to talk about it. We'll get into it a bit deeper, but I'm just I've never been so excited about a technology wave before than seeing what's going into our product and how people are using it. It's kind of like, we've got a candy store, and the kids have now gone in and just gone, all right, what can I, or a Lego store, more like a Lego store. What can I build? Now I've got all this Lego available to me. And we're just seeing these pots of innovation come out of everywhere, which is really interesting. Yeah. So I think Project Sophia as well is, that's... Oof. Yeah, I think that
we could spend a whole podcast talking about that. That's very exciting. Maybe we should. Maybe that's one of the next topics we'll talk about, Scott. I think that's very interesting, and that's going to basically unpack and hopefully bridge a lot of this stuff together. So.
Yeah, I think I've got the perfect guest to come on, Greg Nash, who I talk with regularly, specializes in data and AI. Let's bring Greg on to really talk about Project Sophia and get his thoughts, because he's deep in the weeds on this stuff all the time. But to put it in perspective, I reckon I saw this week on our internal calls, probably about 6 or 7 different projects like Project Sophia that are going to really change the way that we work. So everything's got a project name, as you know, but that was the really exciting stuff. All these projects are great, but that one in particular, I think everyone's excited about to see. And for those who haven't seen it, you can go on and we'll put links again in the chat. But effectively, instead of constructing using Power BI and constructing a data visualization now, we just use natural language to go and prompt data, and it creates the visual that suits the data, if that makes sense. So, hey, go and create me this, and it'll just go and do it. And then you can click on it and go, can you change this from a pie graph to a bar graph, and so on and so forth. So it's really a conversation with your data. I really like it. It's good.
Yeah, there's just so much cool things happening at the moment, and there's so many new sort of technology options and streams and all of this kind of stuff. And I agree with you when you mentioned before about going fast. I remember I caught up with Aaron Bjork, I think, a couple of weeks ago in Sydney, and he was talking about the Microsoft strategy about going fast with this and making sure they can roll out as quickly as possible and embed this into their products. And again, from a partner standpoint, I've never seen anything get adopted and pushed out so fast. It is really amazing, and it's really incredible. And I guess a lot of the learnings we're seeing as part of that sort of initial push is really beneficial to Microsoft as part of this. And the amount of use cases we've seen in the sort of last couple of weeks is really incredible. Again, we caught up with Dwayne Robinson, the CoPilot, I think, the product owner of that. And again, that was a phenomenal session and really enjoyed that. And again, we're seeing a lot of really fantastic CoPilot Studio examples come out, particularly the last couple of weeks as customers get more familiar with it. I think that's really exciting. And again, it's a really good segue into, I guess, maybe our guest for today. And Scott, maybe do you want to talk about Adam in a bit more detail and kind of what he does within Microsoft?
Yeah, so I've been working with Adam for a long time now, and Adam took on the project of spearheading, I guess, enterprise program for early adopters for CoPilot and program, and he works with a lot of customers to be able to drive that adoption. So he was kind of in it from the beginning. Adam's done a lot of different podcasts and YouTube sort of videos. He's just one with Lisa Crosby recently. It was good to have him on the show and really have a bit of a chat to him about where he sees the practical use cases for CoPilot. And look, really timely for us as well, because CoPilot's getting GPT 4.5 in April. So that means it'll go multimodal, which opens a whole bunch of more use cases right there for the product. And also our CoPilot for sales in the biz app side of things and CoPilot service is starting to get really mature now. So effectively we have, I mean, to demystify it a little bit, we have 3 Copilots in my world that really make sense. We have CoPilot Studio, which is, how to create a chatbot and really build upon. And that was super popular, like we spoke about at the AI tour. We have CoPilot for service, which works across Dynamics products as well as Salesforce, ServiceNow and others. And then we have CoPilot for sales, which does the same, works across similar products. So, and they're really there to optimize the people that use those products, a salesperson or a customer service agent or whatnot.
Yeah, and I agree. And Adam, similar to your sentiment, Adam's been doing almost a road show. So if you see a little CoPilot booth and you're located at one of the AI events, normally Adam will be kind of running the show, and he knows his stuff, obviously. He's a really good guy. And also, I actually got a lot of benefit out of the conversation because I found all these great examples that I hadn't heard about utilizing M365 Copilot. So thanks again, Adam, for saving me about, maybe 4 to 5 hours a week and on the road to 20. That's all I want to say. I really want to leverage AI, and I'm going to be picking Adam's brain consistently to give me all these new shiny examples of how we can use Copilot. So yeah, we really hope the listeners enjoy that chat and get a lot out of it. I actually downloaded a mobile application, which Adam told me to, on the podcast during the podcast again. So you'll hear that come up, and I recommend everyone also downloading that. But I won't give that away. We want the listeners to listen to it and then obviously get the benefit of that. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we might take a short break, Matt, and then we'll bring on Adam onto the show.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Matt, and good to be here. Thanks, Scotty, for inviting me. Yeah, look, my background is customer, project, program, portfolio delivery, then moving into Microsoft, really focused on the adoption and change as a CSM, customer success manager for modern work. Because what I've realized through delivery was it doesn't matter how well you do a project from a project triangle perspective, scope, schedule, budget. It really is about, are people getting the value from it? So being able to drive the value from your investment is where I then focused on. Matt and I had a great experience working together on Partnerland, really seeing it not from the Microsoft helicopter or 30,000 feet view, but boots on the ground in terms of just the challenges and the opportunities that people have when adopting technology. And then came back to Microsoft and had a great experience over the last 9 months, taking all of our early access program or the private preview customers in enterprise commercial through the M365 Copilot, which if you had asked me back in October about this, I probably would have said to you a very different answer, but very grateful now to be able to reflect back on just what it was like to ride the crest of a wave. That is Copilot, and look forward to sharing more about that today.
So maybe let's click a little bit more into that early access program, because effectively you were the first sort of group of people to really take Copilot to market. How was that? How did you find that? I mean, no one knew what it was, and here's this program that we have to talk about with customers.
Yeah, look, without revealing too much, it was the closest to working in partner land that I've ever had at Microsoft, because I moved out of being in the field into Corp, and we were part of, the CSAs globally that were looking after every single early access program participants across the globe. Initially, we were looking at around 600. I think it ended up being around 1,300. And it was, how do we take them through the journey of, from purchase through to establishing the right governance framework, making sure that the adoption was strong so that you could drive towards business value, and then how do you capture that business value for something so new to be able to feed into your business case. Very much like in partner land, where you might have put in a strategy for a customer and then they say, now can you execute? And you're like, to value. But there was a journey we all needed to go on.
So we fast forward kind of a year on, I guess, from that point, customers had a chance to use it. What's the feedback on Office CoPilot there?
The answer is like you would expect, and it's kind of a parallel to your adoption curve for technology. There are still customers that are part of the EAP that haven't really started, are still stuck at their security, governance, compliance, risk management stage. And then there are those that are that have customers. I got an email today with one saying, don't try and take my CoPilot license from me, to their project team and adoption team. So the answer really comes down to how you've ran it. And some of these are not, AI or generative AI related. It's basic program and change management around strong sponsorship, giving people the support capacity to play, to learn, to grow, to experiment. Because ultimately the biggest change with CoPilot is moving from, let's call it that kind of waterfall, deterministic thinking of tried it, pass, fail, yes, no, CoPilot doesn't work, to more of a agile kind of way of thinking, experimentation, feedback, comeback mindset. Try it later. And those organizations that did that well, typically partnering with an innovation function that was driving and supporting them, really embraced that approach and supported their users to get to capturing that value.
Really something that I'm really interested in having a chat, because in your introduction before, you kind of alluded to the way that you really look at making sure the organizations get value from the product. And it's something that working with you for a period of time definitely resonated with, I think, both of us. And that's why we've always had a really good synergy. But talk to me about how organizations specifically are getting value from the various CoPilot suites of products, because there are a number of them. Yeah, there's hundreds of CoPilots. Yeah, so maybe talk to me a bit about your definition of CoPilot and maybe some of the examples of the CoPilot, business value returns that you're seeing from your customers that you've been working with.
Yeah, Microsoft marketing don't always make it easy for customers. If I aggregate it up to a higher level, the CoPilot brand is about having an assistant in whatever you're working in, a digital assistant with you, whatever you're doing. So, for example, CoPilot for the web, aka Bing Chat Enterprise, etc., is a digital assistant across finding and generating information or whatever you need to do that's based on the corpus of information that's available out in the World Wide Web. So it really comes down to helping you where you are, whatever you're doing. And that might be, you'll use different CoPilots depending on your role. You might be, for example, in customer service, and I've got some great examples of where they got a lot of value out of M365 CoPilot, but obviously think about Dynamics or Sales CoPilot, and also those extensibility plays into your world around Power Platform and CoPilot Studio, because we don't just do one thing. Like, we don't just have effective meetings. We also then typically have to communicate out about that. We also have to convert that into maybe different languages, different audiences, different segments of who we're targeting with this message. And we'll also need to capture and measure all that. Not everything will be done out of the box with CoPilot for M365. But what you'll find is that there isn't a problem that we've found so far that can't be solved with the full stack, whether it's CoPilot extensibility into low code or into pro code and the whole CoPilot stack.
It's really interesting, Adam, because I know my team's been doing a lot of work at the moment around MTC, so our Microsoft Technology Center sessions, where we can connect CoPilot with Azure to kind of grab customers' data and then turn that into actionable outcomes, and having a lot of success around that. So I think we can see, the platform now is really coming together, and particularly around guardrails. So what's your feedback around, governance and guardrails and things like that you're seeing in the platform and being able to support CoPilot? I think it's a unique proposition from us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been like the eternal kind of fight between good and evil, if you will, between governance, security versus usability, and the slider of where do we actually accept risk and innovate, or lock down and manage risk to zero.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about having the right sponsorship and awareness of really business risk management rather than trying to manage risk to zero. So obviously what we're able to do in your world to set up those guardrails so people have that experience of being able to experiment within guardrails is critical to innovation. How do we have that right balance? And having the right setup to support dev in a low code way can only accelerate development. But I think we miss a trick when we don't then take that to really the end users. And to me, that's when we'll hit, if you will, the holy grail of how Gen AI can really be enabled. Because think about the likes of, well, one of our own now, Nathan Backers, and what he was able to do at Telstra by having the SME knowledge to be able to implement that. That's the opportunity across all of the CoPilot world and universe, and what Gen AI can do with people that are in the Microsoft stack. But we have to give them the opportunity to do it.
So, Adam, you've been running a lot of, I guess, you've been on the conference tour, I've seen. And for anyone that has been looking at the Microsoft socials, Adam's basically a celebrity now. There's lots of videos going on where Adam's sitting at conference booths, talking to customers. What I'm interested to hear is what type of questions you've been getting from customers during your conference road tour that you've been going on. And I guess how have you been directing and giving advice and all of those kind of things?
And will AI take my job, for example? And through the early access program where we are working with those 300 users that had a license to be able to do this, my answer was, look, AI may not take your job, but people that can use AI will. So this is your opportunity to really get and build the muscle and the skills to be able to interact in a new way, in an agile experimentation model with learning a new language. How do you talk to a generative AI, CoPilot, whatever CoPilot you're using? And also, how do you go on that change management journey? Because personally, I was frustrated as hell sometimes with CoPilot, but candidly, CoPilot didn't care. It was only me that got frustrated. So how did I then have to manage myself to grow, to learn how to do this?
You've got to be nice.
What was that?
You've got to be nice to AI. So,
yeah, absolutely. And the answer to your question comes down to who I was talking to, what they did and what they were doing, and where they were taking a value-based lens. So the best engagement I had was with COOs, typically, that were taking a full lens across the business rather than just a cost view or a this view or a that view or a personal risk view. Yeah.
I think customers are still kind of trying to work out, where this all fits and how they can be more productive. Where's the return on investment? All of these things. Yeah. CoPilot's a licensed option. So maybe just talk us through how people get started with Office Copilot and
sure.
And what you're seeing, how people are purchasing this, and what does it kind of look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's been a lot of learning, certainly at the enterprise level. And I also have a lot of friends of mine that are in SMC space or SMB space, as a Microsoft would look at small to medium businesses or across that whole kind of lens. And given the majority of Australian businesses are not enterprise, it is amazing how much value there is in that space for CoPilot. And especially now we've opened it up to anyone effectively with basic business premium license, because, one of my friends we tested this with during EAP was RFP responses.
Yeah.
Consumed so much time, Matt. You and I have had the joy of that on both sides of the fence, right? And
it makes me cringe out of it.
I saw you shivering.
Yeah.
And so how do you actually run an RFP process to generate that on the outside? How do you then on the other side of the fence take your PowerPoint presentation that you need to now present based on the submission that you had? But that's kind of the basics, like just drafting, content creation and CoPilot and working with it. It's how do you then kind of build on top of that? And how do you take users towards what else can it do? And it's that proven model of the longer the adoption, the stronger the business value is generated, because you have more time to think about what can it do for me, apply it to what I do. And so, like if I take that RFP example, like, can you now compare this response with this response? What's it missing? Or these are the key criteria, CoPilot, this is my response. Does it have Have I addressed all of the key criteria? You know, in the past, you typically have Matt would produce something, he'd send it to us to IC, to review, before you then would send it out more broadly. CoPilot is now your first reviewer. So we're missing a trick around productivity, but what about quality? How do we measure that? Because CoPilot can review your document. Does this conclusion match the body? Does it have a call to action? CoPilot, can you help me to generate an inspirational speech based on my annual report and reference that file? Include some famous quotes tied to this content. Oh, and by the way, there's a joke about AI. Could you also include a funny quip? It's that kind of using it in how you do your job. And the last thing that I typically do when I'm talking to an exec is also, so how did you go in your annual? So when you presented this, how did you go? Did you watch the video? Nah. What did your team say? Oh, they said it was great. Of course they did. Did you ask CoPilot? CoPilot won't doesn't care about your role. It'll give you the true reflection. So when I ran one of those sessions you were talking about, Matt, I asked CoPilot afterwards, how did I present? Did the message land? Did it sound like I was reading the slides? You know, you can get that feedback because it's independent without any fear of it losing its job and managing up.
I love the RFP example, and I love deep thinking through these things, right? So if you think about an RFP process, we've got CoPilot creating the RFP, we've got CoPilot responding with the RFP, we've got Teams calls throughout the RFP process that are summarized by CoPilot, so people don't actually need to attend the meetings. So where does that leave, when you think about it, where does it leave pre-sales for us and our engagement with our customers? Matt, you've probably got some comments around that as well, given that you go through it from the services point of view, right? Like, and that's another story altogether.
Yeah, I just want to thank Adam for saving me 20 hours a week based off that RFP. And I think every other partner that's listening is of a similar sentiment to myself, because, yeah, it's a fantastic use case. It's a common pattern. We should be using AI and CoPilot to do those repeatable tasks. Yeah. So again, thanks, Adam, for sharing that. And I want to know if there are any other sort of specific examples that you are utilizing CoPilot for, considering your experience. Yeah. Are there sort of some quick tips, quick tricks? You know, we do Teams meeting notification summaries, a lot of that kind of stuff. But I want it from the master. What other things is CoPilot doing that I should be doing and the listeners should be doing at home?
Unfortunately, Matt, CoPilot can't help you with what you shouldn't be doing. So we just focus on what you should be doing.
How's that?
You can ask, but I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think it's really interesting because I try and tell the stories with users so it resonates with them in a storytelling fashion, right? So for me, we have, and I think every customer of ours at this stage has seen Project Falcon. And it's a demo that shows how you can capture the sentiment of the meeting, understand the decision that was made, and kind of save yourself an hour. And in 3 minutes, you can kind of take that information and understand the pros and cons for the decision to delay the go by 2 weeks. But then how do you take that and turn that into what you do? So I was a program manager. So how do you then use CoPilot to take that information and put it into your steer code deck? And can you turn it into an audience for an exec? So be more succinct and rewrite the language for you without having to manually do that, without having to go back through the tape multiple times and capture that. Then I now need to update the project schedule tied to that, right? Because the milestones, that's now 2 weeks delayed. I can't even remember where that file was. Did Matt send me it? Is it in the project governance folder on SharePoint? No, I didn't. And I've got to get this done now. We spend 27 minutes a day or 3 weeks a year wasting time on things we know we have, we just can't find. CoPilot, what is the project milestones for Project Falcon? It'll find them for you. Then, one of the other things, and I got burnt on this before, is that execs get about 400 emails a day. I was told by one of the EGMs of one of the banks. How much time they spend in meetings and how much of that they actually read is very hard, right? And when I was in portfolio delivery, one of the milestones had been changed on the project that I was providing an update on, and I didn't know. But some of the other people in the room had just found out before the meeting. So I used CoPilot to actually look in my emails and Teams chats over the last reporting period, say 2 weeks, find anything related to Project Falcon. And it will find, because I've sent it, or someone sent it for me, a email that will show there was a milestone file was delayed by 5 days. Right? So I'm finding things I didn't even know I had. Then, don't stop there. Okay, so CoPilot, can you now update my milestone list with the email I just received and output that in a table so I can copy that into my steerco deck, and it'll do that for you. So it's how do you actually kind of just have the time to play, experiment, and see what it can do for you in what you do. That was kind of one of the, let's say, the demo scenarios. You kind of just need to give yourself the time to play, to experiment, to learn and grow. And I always assume I'm the problem if I'm not getting the output from CoPilot until I kind of get what it is and get where I want to get to. So there's some of the small examples. The last one I'll give you is I had it play with CoPilot Studio because with all the hype and CoPilot focus, I haven't had any time really to focus on teams and what we used to do in our old world. And I had to renew my associate certificate. So I built myself a CoPilot Studio, pointed it at the learn.microsoft.com URL, and did my test where I had the best imaginable search engine to find everything I needed to answer some of the questions that might have come up in that test.
It's very interesting that you've opened that can of worms now, because I think, we're either going to generate a whole bunch of people that appear really, really smart, and certainly going through interviews and things like that, people should be really prepared. If I was interviewing someone for a role in my team, my expectations have now gone up. You should know who the team are, what the technology is. You should even know a little bit about Microsoft, the company, around what its goals are, because it's just a chat, right? So I think everyone's kind of leveling up now. This is the new expectation. If you're not on board, then you're going to struggle, right? And I think the same goes for tests, exams, all these sort of things where they're open book. The natural thing is to use a language model for this stuff. But so many, I can see a podcast, Matt, top 10 hacks for CoPilot or top 10 use cases. You could probably do that every 3 months, and it's going to build this list of, these great ideas, because they just keep flooding in every day. I hear something crazy.
We build out like all the CSA, capture those scenarios, and they're now going to get put into the scenario library that you get as part of CoPilot. Because really what you're trying to do is there's the innovators and the people that will experiment, and there's the early adopters, and then there's the followers that we want, but they probably won't spend the time to do it themselves. They need to be shown or told. And that's really the key, is how do we build up this library for people to be able to capture the value from it so that people can then just apply it and see for themselves in what they do. And each organization is capturing that, because you'll be able to put that into CoPilot Lab and filter on your own organization all those prompts and use cases that are working really well for what you do.
We spoke about this with Nathan, where we were talking about, when you first joined Microsoft, someone sends you an Excel spreadsheet with 200 links. When you click on to kind of figure out how you navigate Microsoft, and we think the future is probably going to be here's 200 prompts. Go punch that in the CoPilot, and you'll get a lot more sort of information. So, maybe there's a power app there, Matt, where a prompt power app where you just click on a button, I want to do this, and it just sends a prompt to a language model.
So you've saved me 20 hours and a new power app idea. Adam, you're welcome on the show anytime you want, mate. So that's really good advice as part of it. I agree with the 10 tips and tricks. As Adam was talking, I was just sitting there nodding my head, because I was like, that's amazing. Yeah. So Adam, you're obviously quite mature at using CoPilot. For someone that's looking to kind of level up and start to navigate it, you kind of mentioned before, just get started. But what are some other things you can do to think about how to interact with CoPilot? Because I think that's the thing, get started. But just some advice from you about navigating it through and having it as that, basically your assistant to help guide you. So,
So probably 2 things there. For M365 Copilot, for any of the adoption people out there that are trying to drive this, and someone's just giving you a few licenses and you're like, what do I do with it? Really important that people understand that Copilot, as we talked about, is everywhere. And it's different in how it will behave, because deliberately tied to the scope of what you're doing. So if I'm running a meeting like this and we have transcription on, I can interact with it. Matt's asked a question. I didn't quite catch his name. I don't want to be rude. What was Matt's name? Or Matt's mentioned some, I don't know, stochastic interest rate that I remember from my uni days, but no idea what that means. And I don't want to look like the dumb IT guy. Quickly ask CoPilot. So remember, there's no dumb questions around what CoPilot can do for you, and it never gets bored. It'll never get cranky with you or short-tempered because you've asked the same thing 3 times. So it is really there for you no matter what you're doing. That might be sending an email, and I myself have ADHD, and sometimes I can be very direct when under pressure and conscious about how the tone might come across an email, which is not actually how I feel, it's just how that can be written. So using coaching by CoPilot to put itself into the shoes of the recipient, give me feedback on, does this have empathy? Does this have clarity of the ask? Those are really important kind of upskilling for me, because it also then helps me learn how to write it better the next time, and hopefully less kind of coaching required as we all upskill. And so you'll see that as a pattern across the tools. It's there to upskill. Excel will tell you and help you with multiple things, but it'll also explain the steps so that you can actually learn as you go by osmosis, right? So I use the analogy of one room at a time, or introducing a kitten to a house, one room at a time. Do the same with CoPilot. Take people through the adoption around effective meetings, or some sort of hero scenario like finding information, whatever it is, because if we don't do that, we see a big drop off in that hype cycle of Gartner, if you're familiar with that. Very soon people go from, what's this all about, straight into the trough of disillusionment, wondering what this, like just giving up. To help with that is how do we actually show them value so they'll stay with the journey, because it is a journey, it's a change journey.
When Judson was out a few weeks back, or a couple of weeks ago, he said to everyone in the room when he was in New Zealand, I think you should use the CoPilot app. And I was one of those people that hadn't used the CoPilot app before. I was surprised at that. Downloaded it. Now I've used it every day since. So I think anyone getting started out there, if they really just want something that you can just, it's just so useful. Like the amount of times I just punch into that CoPilot app before I Google or Bing something now, it's becoming that first place to find things out and just get the answer. No ad, just get an answer.
Yep.
And
agreed.
Absolutely loving that app at the moment. Matt's just sitting there downloading an app. He's just sitting there.
Yeah. I'm joking.
Well, hopefully there's like 5,000 people listening to this podcast now, like grabbing that app and downloading it. Maybe time to wrap it up, Matt. I mean, it's been amazing, Adam, having you on the podcast. And we love your feedback as always, and a lot of experience around this, having run that program and being the first to market. But thank you for joining the show and chatting about all things CoPilot and use cases. Matt, any final words?
Yeah, thanks again, Adam. And can CoPilot help my golf game? Because I think we're due a game of golf soon. So let's get onto that.
It can at least help you to set a reminder for the alarm to go off so that you are there. Start there.
Anything's helping next on.
Anyway, we're digging a whole lot of little dark secrets like the Sweet Prince and everything from last show. So yeah.
Yes, the Sweet Prince is out there. I think that's how we're starting the next podcast.
Good. But massive thanks, Adam. And thanks for sharing a lot of that. I got a lot out of it. And I can imagine everyone that's listening is part of it. And I think definitely getting you off on as a follow-up potentially to chat more about tips and tricks, because I can imagine in 12 months the scenarios we're going to understand and be utilizing with CoPilot is going to be phenomenal. Yeah. So it's a continually learning, evolving journey for everyone. So looking forward to continuing the conversation with yourself. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Adam. Hey, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for everyone for listening to our podcast. Just a few reminders. So we've set up a LinkedIn page. So we'll endeavour to put some updates on that LinkedIn page. So go on there and click follow for us. Also, don't forget to go to powertime.au and subscribe to our newsletter.
And lastly, if you could please click a follow on this podcast so you get the latest episodes as they come out. We're trying to get the podcasts out every 2 to 3 weeks, so there should be a good cadence with a whole bunch of new guests coming on. Now, lastly, don't forget that the views on this podcast are not the views of MCS or Microsoft, but they're the views of Matt and I and our guests. Thanks again. See you. Can't wait to see you on the next podcast.